The Joe Rogan Experience.
Do you know one of the dudes that survived the Titanic? He was in the water for 2 hours. And I think he was a chef. And the story was that he got drunk before he went in the water. He just got hammered because he knew he was going to die. And somehow or another, because he was drunk, he survived. See if you can find that. I was reading this. I was like, how does that make sense? How a baker survived the Titanic sinking by getting really drunk. God damn, these ad blockers, these motherfuckers. There we go. Okay. So, can you go back up so I could read? Scroll. So it says Charles, how do you say that? Johin? How do you say that, Jamie? Johin was one of the disaster's most unlikely survivors, and he did it thanks to industrial amounts of liquor. So this dude got super duper hammered before he went in the water, and somehow or another it helped him survive. It was an almost physiologically impossible feat of survival, and according to the British Titanic inquiry, it was because the 33-year-old Englishman had the presence of mind to greet history's greatest maritime disaster by getting smashed. So
he knew he was dying.
He knew he was dying, so he just decided to get fucked up, but he survived. In survival situations, having all that warm blood away from the vital organs means that the drinker is at a greater risk of hyperthermia. However, Canadian hypothermia expert Gordon Geisbrecht figures in the minus 2 degrees Celsius temperature of the North Atlantic, the water was cold enough to quickly tighten Johin's blood vessels and cancel out any effects of the alcohol. So then, at low to moderate doses of alcohol, cold will win out, says Geisbrecht. A University of Manitoba professor has performed hundreds of cold water immersion studies. What Johin would have had, however, is the awesome life-saving power of liquid courage. Alcohol remains a leading cause of humans getting into fatal situations, including freezing to death. Nevertheless, the relaxing qualities of the drug have long been known to give humans an uncanny ability to survive trauma.
This reminded me of the story of the lady that passed out in the snow, and her friends found her like the next day, and they brought her in. She was still alive.
Yeah, they're saying right here in the ER, cold patients who are really drunk can walk in, and they're conscious at a temperature that they shouldn't be. So being drunk keeps you alive. Keep scrolling down a little more. That's it?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, his actions might speak to a man unfazed by impending disaster. Immediately upon hearing the collision with an iceberg, the chief baker leapt out of his bunk and began dispatching his staff to stock the lifeboats with bread and biscuits. This done, he popped back into his cabin for a drink before heading topside to help load lifeboats. Not only did Joaquin, however I say his name, Joaquin, refuse his own place on a boat, but there's no men like that today. But he and a few other men began forcibly chucking reluctant women into empty seats, likely saving their lives. He said, "We threw them in," he testified later. Top deck of the increasingly listing Titanic was mostly cleared of lifeboats by 1:30 a.m. To most, this was a panic-inducing sign that all hopes of rescue was gone. But to whatever his name is, it was a cue to head back to his cabin for another drink. So this dude's just getting fucked up. He sat down on his bunk and nursed it along, aware but not particularly caring that the water now rippled through the cabin doorway, wrote historian Walter Lord in A Night to Remember. Lord was in touch with the dude before the baker's 1956 death. He said the dude then splashed topside again, where he took upon himself to begin throwing deck chairs overboard with an eye to filling the water with impromptu flotation devices, so the people could float around on the chairs. His perched, he then worked his way back to the pantry to get a drink of water. The baker was standing on the stern when the ship broke in half, and yet he remembered the violent, catastrophic breakup only as a great list over to port. There was no great shock or anything, he told the Inquirer, so he was just hammered. Definitely moving through the swarms of people, he made it to the stern rail of the ship. Exactly 2:20 a.m., he rode the sinking Titanic into the sea like an elevator. Woo! As with all surviving Titanic crew members, 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912 was also the exact moment at which the White Star Line stopped paying him. Oh, boy. The first stage of cold water immersion is known as cold shock. Horrifying sensation of having the skin cool. The feelings with the Titanic's second officer, Charles Lightoller, described as being like 1,000 knives being driven into one's body. So how did this dude survive? What did he float around on for 2 hours? What did it say?
Paddling and treading water, you said.
I was just paddling and treading water for 2 hours? Oh my God.
How come Leo couldn't do that then in the movie? He just sunk in the water after 2 minutes.
But Leo wasn't hammered and he gave up. This dude didn't give up. He paddled water for hours. I guess it took a couple hours for them to get someone to get to them.
Yeah, he's after 2 hours.
Which is pretty
the
impressive that they got to them in 2 hours.
darkness, eventually hauled.
In 19 what? What was this like?
19 or somewhere around there. I don't know the exact 1912. Somewhere, I don't know.
It was the early 1900s. So the fact they got to them in 2 hours is pretty amazing. 1919.
2019.
Oh no, 107th anniversary. Yeah, okay. So
12.
yeah, 1912. Wow.